Just gave up on this one fiscal year, but maybe the lady is, she maybe is, I don't know.
Welcome to the continuation of yesterday's budget workshop. And I want to, we're going to, Kyle is actually working on an option 4 that I had worked on some last night, another option to take a look at. And there are a couple things I thought we could do while he is finishing that. One is that we could, I want to call on Gordon to make a couple of comments, particularly about our deliberations today, and particularly in light of various conflicts of interest issues that could be present. And then when I call on the county manager to review our draft of the board directive initiatives, and then we can actually take a look at options 1, 2, and 3 to make sure we understand the differences between those. And I think by that time, perhaps Kyle will be with us. I will remind everyone that we are live streamed on YouTube and Facebook, and I think on Cable 13 there will be a replay at some point of this meeting. So with that said, I'll call on our county attorney, Gordon Watkins, to give us a little advice.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just remind the board of the North Carolina statute about conflicts for boards on which you serve. There are just a few, I believe 3 of the organizations under consideration for special appropriations in which a board member serves on that board, and so that board member would not be able to discuss that appropriation. So I'll just remind the board that when you are discussing today options 1, 2, 3, and 4, that you're really not discussing or not to discuss the individual allocations to those organizations. That will be decided on Thursday, and the vote on Thursday will be a vote on the budget and then a vote on the non-conflicted special appropriations, and then 2 more amendments, or however many are necessary to have a board member recused to vote on the other nonprofits in which a board member is conflicted. So broadly, as I understand it, what you're considering today, option 1 has $0 for special appropriations. Options 2 and 3, I believe, both have $1,064,750 in special appropriations. I'm not counting the additional positions because those are really alternative service levels. So 2 and 3 have, again, $1,064,750. And as I understand it, we will be receiving an option 4, which would add $280,000 to that number. So option 4, I believe, will be special appropriations of $1,344,750.
So the difference between 2 and 3 is what again? I mean, it looks like the total.
I believe the difference
I
is...
do see some total difference here.
I believe the difference is between 2 and 3, and the budget director can explain this better than I can, but I believe there are no differences in special appropriations. There's a difference in an additional position for the sheriff, and I believe a reduction in the reserve for the school system. But Kyle can certainly correct me on that if I'm wrong.
I see it at the top. Yeah, it's the top of in the list of special appropriations. You basically see the 2 at the very top, two 116,693s for the two sheriff positions, and in option 2, there's only one of those, which is a special victims investigator for the 116,693. All right. See the difference. 4 will be here shortly. I'll ask the county manager to go over he mentioned these yesterday, and he has these actually written to see if that meets everyone's. This would be included in the budget ordinance.
Yep. So, as you know, every year there's actually this section that that we include things that we hear from the board that kind of inevitably come up that are related to the budget, really related to next year's work program, but that we wanted to articulate that. So I've got 3, and on the first one, really dealing with volunteer fire departments, we talked a lot about how strong revenue growth was, particularly on property tax. And so, the need to at least throw out there with the volunteer fire departments the potential for a revenue neutral adjustment in 2025. So basically that just reads, in light of the increasing property valuations, communicate with the volunteer fire departments the potential for a revenue neutral adjustment in FY25. The second one, Commissioner Woodbury had talked about articulating this need to place some dollars, and we'll include that when we build the budget ordinances after we get some direction today, but place some number in a budget reserve and defer the decision on additional funding beyond $7.2 million, including the county manager's recommendations, until the Board of Education can reconcile locally funded positions to the 2023 data provided by the schools and provide a compensation classification recommendation for the classified salaries with the estimate of implementation costs.
Dudley, I have a question about that. Have we had any conversation with the board chair or Tricia regarding our option here?
About this
Yes,
particular
yes.
board?
Mhm. I just would like them to at least be informed.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I may, thank you. I was able to speak with the superintendent and sort of brought her up to speed of where we left off and asked about, I just told her where we were with the funded positions piece. And I don't know if there will be time enough for them to get the information before we vote on Thursday. So, but I do agree with you. I think formally, maybe the county manager can have some conversation with Ms. McManus to kind of see where they are and they have any idea at least around, these positions.
Yeah.
I did have some email communication last week with and I said it was personally. I said I'm not speaking for the board, but basically for me, if you get some good information on where you really have, where you're really behind and not so far behind, and can differentiate where your classified employees are in a market study, I said I would be very supportive of something in a coming year. But I said couldn't do it right now without that. So and that's been communicated, and it was pretty much in the paper today. So I mean, it's kind of, I realize we don't communicate through the paper, but I did communicate through an email to her last week with that. And also, I think I copied Tommy, and I think I copied, I don't remember if I copied the board chair or not. I just don't remember that.
Yeah,
I
so
made
I'm
several
just asking out of respect, just to have a conversation with them, that's all.
And I appreciate that. I think my sort of reaction is I know Kyle and Tommy have had extensive discussions about both of those, the importance of getting the position control piece done and the compensation class. And I've actually really going back the last 3 months, a lot of conversation with Superintendent McManus about how important that was going to be to framing the budget this year. And so I don't think they're surprised. And obviously, I think it was Tommy said yesterday that they need to get the common class work done. So, yeah, hopefully that articulates that. If there's some wordsmithing that needs to be done, we'll as a group, as we're putting together the budget or the ordinance for the formal action, we'll wordsmith it some and make sure that it reads correctly. And then the last one, we talked a little bit about yesterday, facilitate a board discussion and review of current programs to reduce violence and crime in Forsyth County, particularly among youth. Those are really, I kind of envision that being the county programs that the board's already involved in and has funded, but perhaps even pulling in initiatives that the city has underway and a broad, kind of a broad net across all that. and then update the board on evaluation methodology that tracks measures and outcomes. So that would be, as we plan next year, whether we do that in a morning session, we try to hold that out for a winter work session, or if in conversations with board members, if y'all want to have a separate sort of summit around that, that could be possible too. So that's what I heard.
I think that would be good. And anybody could come, well, obviously, anybody come if they want to anyway, it's a public meeting, but we could sort of advertise it as this special topic and folks to come and be part of that.
Yeah, and perhaps pull JCPC into that meeting, maybe a joint meeting with the board and JCPC as well, so.
I think that's good. Kyle, are you ready to review the budget, the option 4 issue that we've got? And maybe we could, do you have copies of that?
I believe Ashley just, sorry. Yep, Ashley's going to pass them around. What Ashley's going to pass around, I think, is actually all 4 options to get. So there's option 1, 2, and 3 and 4. But option 4 would be the last page.
We got 1, 2, 3, I think.
Thank you, Hon.
Thank you. Let's go.
Sorry for coming in a little bit late. So it sounds like you guys already walked through options 1 through 3. Do you want me to just go through 4 and the differences between?
Yeah, we just had a quick review of 1 and 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
1, 2, and 3, excuse
1, 2,
me.
and 3. All right. Okay. And so, as you see all 4 options in your handouts here, you'll notice that all 4 options on the first page, they're all the same. I mean, it's where we started. It's the adjustments that were made post-budget presentation, the manager's recommended alternate service levels. That's the first page. It's the same on all 4.
Can I make one comment?
Yes, sir.
On that page, and we may all want, it doesn't change the totals, but I'm in favor of leaving the recycling centers open and not budget for the Medicaid expansion contingency.
Yes, sir.
That's not the way, this is still presented as the deduct for the recycling centers and the expansion to.
On the first page. And so if you flip over to your second page.
Well, no.
Yeah, and so, yeah, kind of the way this flows is manager.
You made the adjustments on page 2.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's a whole.
Instead of just removing it, we're double deducting and double adding. Okay, I got it.
Basically
Yeah, think of it as
trying
a
to-
timeline. So it's what we got submitted, it's the alternate service levels, and then it's the board stuff.
And trying not to confuse you, I'm making it even more confusing. That's right. So-
Okay, that's good. That's great. I like double accounting. I like that double. I like it.
And so if we want to, we could just look at 4, since you've already looked at 1, 2, and 3, and I can explain the differences as we go there. So your copies are not starred, but so this is option 4, and so again, what you'll see on all 4 options is we're starting up at this number of 569, 499, 508, which is again where we started in all those recommendations, adjustments, recommendations, and so option 4 would essentially follow along basically what option 2 was, which includes 1 special victims investigator for the sheriff, the 2 positions for Department of Social Services, and then it reverses the county manager's recommendation to include the additional funds for Medicaid expansion. So it basically, we're going to knock out that $200,000. It's going to add the environmental health specialist for public health, and then in EAP, we're going to eliminate the manager's recommended closing of the 2 recycling centers. It'll keep them open. And so that adds an extra cost of $200,000. And so, again, there's the kind of a net zero. And then for the special appropriations, again, it's kind of following option 2 with the $1,000 for the One Love Festival, $100,000 for Arts Council. Option 2 and option 3 did not have the Children's Law Center in it. Option 4 would add $50,000 to the Children's Law Center. And then Eliza's Helping Hands and Experiment, Self-Reliance, and Harry Veterans Community outreach services, those three are the same in option 4 as they are in 2 and 3, as is Callidium. And then neighborhoods hands goes up from 75,000 in option 2 and 3 up to 100,000 in option 4. And then Neighbors for Better Neighborhoods, North Carolina Black Repertory Company, and Old Salem, those are the same funding levels in option 4 as they are in 2 and 3. Renolda House goes up from 5,000 in 2 and 3 to 10,000 in option 4. River Run and Conservation Fund are the same funding level as options 2 and 3. The iBank goes up from 50,000 in options 2 and 3 to 250,000 in option 4. And then you've got the next three are the same funding levels as they are in option 2 and 3 for Triad Minority and Women's Business Expo and the two United Way programs, Housing Matters and Partnership for Prosperity. We reduced the budget reserve that we have for special appropriations and the budget reserve in non-departmental. I probably should have put this up here, actually. So it's going to put $1 million for in a budget reserve for the school system for possible classified pay adjustment. And then it reduces the tax rate by 0.21 cents, savings of $925,560, gets you to a new balanced budget for FY24 of $568,629,704, reduces the tax rate from 67.78 to 67.57. And that's really the big difference between option 4 and option 3 is, some additional funding for some of the special appropriations, the reduction of the tax rate, and then the change in the budget reserve for the school system. And that gets you to, again, your final your potentially final FY24 budget.
Question, Kyle.
Yes, sir.
On your showing a reduction in the rate by 21 cents, which funds are being used to do that? Is it funds that's moved around somewhere to accomplish that?
Well, and so in the other options, in options 1, 2, and 3, you've got a larger. You've got basically, essentially, for example, in option 3, there's $1.6 million in a budget reserve for the school system. In option 2, it was $1.8 million, and in option 1, it was $3.1. Option 4's budget reserve is lower, but it also adjusts the tax rate. And so, in the other options, you could either, you could do something with that budget reserve and do something with fund balance or reduce the tax rate. Option 4 is the one that actually recommended reducing the tax rate, and reducing that budget reserve down. So,
Well, let me ask it another way then,
Okay.
because I got my mind one way. It's not accomplished by reduction in expenditure, is it?
well, it is in the fact that there is a higher budget reserve in the other options. And so in option 4, the budget reserve is lower on the expenditure side.
I think the other way of saying that is revenue growth is so robust that we didn't need. We held the rest of the county. The rest of the budget was held to a lower level, and so So, is our expenditures reduced? There was excess revenue essentially in this year's budget.
So, and so looking at it that way, what was excess revenue? It really would have been the $3.1 million that we'd put in an alternate service level, or in a budget reserve for alternate service level, was the $3.1 million. And so that was what revenues over expenditures were.
Well, on,
Let me make one quick comment before, Commissioner Bessie. When we discussed options 1, 2, and 3 yesterday, we actually, our discussion, we were ignoring, let's
The
put it this way,
1.3.
the 1.3, whatever, 1.319927.
That's
We were
correct.
ignoring the part of the budget reserve that was included in the continuation budget.
Right.
So in reality, we never discussed adding all of that into the school district reserve. In fact, the discussion for the school district reserve, if you all will recall, it was the handwritten one that I did back there while you all were waiting, and we copied, it had $885,000 in reserve for the schools. So in options 1, 2, and 3, as they're presented today, that $1,300,000 pretty much has been added into, in fact, not, in option 1, it is $3 million in reserve, and it's listed all for Winston-Salem, Forsyth County Schools, and that was, we never discussed that. We never discussed a reserve of $3 million, nor a reserve over $1 million. So essentially, I didn't have that in my head at all working on this last night. I simply had in my head, we have this 1.3 million. How can we get some reserve out of the 1.3 million that ended up translating into the tax reduction? How can we even out with a round number of $1 million for the schools as a reserve? And then I made those couple other little adjustments over. Chantel had talked to, our Sunshine. We'd had a couple discussions about some assumptions about the Children's Law Center, and did that, and then the rest. So I'd had some discussion with Tanya, particularly on the neighborhood's hands issues, another thing that was part. So I kind of had reflected some of those things in there, and talked to Richard about some reserve. So that's where the tax reduction piece came as a part, that way. I didn't call it a reserve, I just turned it into a tax reduction instead of leaving a dollar figure for it. So, I'm sorry, now, Commissioner Bessie, maybe that's just context.
Yeah, when we look at the three options as they're printed, basically where most of that for the tax rate reduction would come from is what's shown for the reserve for possible classified staff adjustments. It is certainly correct that the options 1, 2, 3 as printed were not what we discussed yesterday. I was just optimistic that we would have a more substantially increased reserve set aside for classified staff. I will acknowledge that $1 million is slightly more than we'd actually discussed yesterday.
Yes.
And if I may, I thought there was going to be some consideration around the $3 salary increase on the sheriff's side, and also I know that there was conversation about not one position, but two, I think, that is recognized as special victims investigator, and I'll try to keep my temperament, but it's a little frustrating to, I guess, take dollars and place them in things that I think, in all fairness, the citizens would understand that for nonprofits that's asking for appropriations in a time like this when crime and stress is high in our communities and we have school issues that we're still trying to give more to organizations that have limited capacity and scope to reach pound for pound all citizens. Safety and education reach the majority of our citizens, and I truly hope that in this time post-COVID and what we're going through, that there is consideration for where we are in this time, and to let those organizations know once we get out of this state, then we can definitely go back to providing more dollars to them.
Commissioner Woodbury, I will mention that the cyber crimes investigator is in option 3. In option 3, you got 2 positions, the special victims cyber crimes investigators are in option 3. And obviously, there can be the mix, just like we had the discussion yesterday on that 885,000. You could add things and change that number. Well, we have another number now, which is the tax decrease, which is the 925,500. So for example, if there was interest around the cyber crimes investigator, if that was strong, then that could be added into option 4 with a reduction of the tax decrease, which would go down to probably 0.20 or, or 0.198 or something, which would be a very small, difference to do that. And I think the issue, I thought we did discuss a couple of times, this was a discussion on the $3 per hour for 9 pay periods. It would not cost anything. It would come out of lapsed salaries. The county manager's view was, if you put it in, it's hard to take it back. Of course, the other side of it is, if you put it in and say it's going to be 9 pay periods and it ends, it ends. And then will there be people complaining about it? Yeah, because everybody gets used to something. Of course, another way to do that is to take the equivalent of the $3 per hour for 9 pay periods and pay it as because this was done as a kind of a recognition reward thing for that during the summer months, and just pay everybody up front a one-time number equal to that. That's exactly what the school district just got through doing with every employee, which was $1,000. They did that, which cost them $3.5 million. The same thing could be done, and the money would have, if we did it at the beginning, you'd have to do it July 1 so that you could recover it then in the salary savings, the lapsed salaries during the year. So, there are a lot of ways to do that with making it revenue neutral to the budget, if that's a desire to do it.
And we've done some analysis around the capacity to pick up more stuff from salary savings, but we're already picking up, out of salary savings, we're picking up $2.8 million for the P&G contract, which has to be, as staffing improves, you have to phase that out. So that's $2.8 million, and there's another $500,000 in there for any bonuses that would be paid out. And so we sort of would advise against any additional stress on that's a lot of money, and we sort of feel tapped out on being able to pick up anything else from salary savings beyond the P&G contract and beyond the $500,000.
Well, let me ask this question, just to put it in real numbers. So roughly, what was the salary lapsing during FY23?
I have to look back at it. Honestly, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. It's just.
I can tell you what it is across the department very quickly.
Salary lapse for the sheriff's office only, because that's what we're talking about. I think in the sheriff's office only, it was probably well in excess of the P&G contract. And also in excess of the bonus, because as you indicated yesterday, not many bonuses were paid.
So I just want to clarify on the bonus piece. Detention officers received $2,500 in October of 2022, and they will receive another $2,500 in October 2023. Those are anyone active on the detention side, and that was being pulled from salary savings as well. The sign-on bonus has not been as many people that's recommended in the county manager's budget, but the retention is anyone that's still here. So they'll get another $2,500 in a few months.
But we actually know what that number is, because we knew how many people were there that got it to start with. They had to be there to get the other part, so we know what that number is. So we know that number, we have a pretty good idea of the P&G number, and we probably have a pretty good idea, we can take a look at if we improve by 15% or 20% in salaries. We can sort of put a number on that. I think there's a way to get a better estimate instead of just guessing. I think we can put a finer tip on that.
There's a ton of assumptions built in how fast he's going to staff up this year, how fast labor market recovery.
Yep.
We've thrown a lot at salary savings.
We have.
Well, What I'm asking you
Yeah.
is I want to hear numbers that tell me, I want to see what is this comfort level of, estimates have to do with comfort level. And estimates have to be informed. And we have the ability to look at 1 year past and inform our estimates and make assumptions about improvements in the labor market and see what is our cushion. I mean, this is a little more than just, I mean, to me, that has no specificity in terms of knowing whether comfortable or not comfortable.
I'm just saying that we're not comfortable. We'll be happy to get you the numbers and so that you can be comfortable or
That'd be
not.
helpful.
So,
I'd
yeah.
like to feel comfortable.
Okay.
Well, I think that's a reasonable request.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, I'm
This
just
whole
saying.
budget's all about being comfortable.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, we're not comfortable, but we will share the data with you, and so you can either be comfortable or not comfortable. Yeah.
Great.
All right.
That'd be great.
That may take a little bit. That may be first thing in the morning before we can get, or we'll get it to you as soon as we can, but it'll take a little bit. But
Well, let me tell you what bothers me a little bit about that, is that tells me you hadn't already done it.
we've done, I mean, that's what Ms. Bussey does. So,
Well,
salaries and benefits, overtime costs that are my estimation with pulling out 1.03 million. Pressure plus this.
and roughly, what were the cost of the $3 per pay period, or nine pay periods, $3 per hour be?
Well, I think the sheriff's estimation was about 426,000. If we assume that to that, then they will get paid $8 more. So if they work more overtime, we're about a little over 500.
So the concept, so that obviously, if, using the figures you've got, I appreciate the numbers. Now we're looking at somewhere, I think I heard you say 300 and about 60, you had a cushion of 365, 375?
78 is what
All right, you had a cushion 378. You use some fairly good estimates on the $3. You're looking at probably 500 plus, what was your 500 number?
500 and
All right, so you're basically 147,000 over, which is obviously uncomfortable. So the question is, and what I think you would be saying, or what the county manager is saying, is that you like the 378,000 cushion is your comfort level.
but I mean, all of that's predicated on having a lot of vacant positions next year. And so we're in June, obviously July is right around the corner. The strategy that was most effective for us in EMS to get staffing back was to hire untrained people and bring in large groups of them and then train them as a group. And so if he is able to do that, then I mean, I am hopeful that by first quarter of next year, he's fully staffed. If all that happened, I mean, that would be amazing if that would happen. But I do think.
Then what is our P&G contract ability to change?
Well, and so that's the other
What is our
thing, is
ability
you're
to
going to
reduce the
phase
P&G
out.
contract?
P&G contracts month to month. You can phase out that P&G.
Yes, so great.
There you go.
But you're going to have brand new people in there, and you're going to have P&G contract that you're going to want to have. The P&G contract folks have been there. They know that system well. You're going to want to overlap that some. And so I think it's just tight, but that's my.
But you have a modeling piece on the P&G contract. It gives you immediate, if you have great success, you have success in phasing that out. I mean, all I'm getting at I'm trying to come, at least I appreciate the numbers. Now I can think about comfort level. And I realize a new variable is a P&G contract is not long-term, negotiated on a month-to-month basis.
And commitments to pay, we've got commitments to pay these retention bonuses and these things, so.
It's not helping the people who did not get they should have gotten a sign-on bonus, and that would have helped them.
But this group received a retention payment in October 2022, and then they will receive another one.
I understand that.
Yeah.
What I was suggesting is, I suspect there are a fair number of people in the detention center right this minute that did not receive a retention bonus because they weren't there.
They
So
received
they're
this-
new, and they
they
received a sign-on bonus.
They received the sign-on bonus
I
for the
understand all
total
this.
same amount.
Jeez,
I-
calm down.
Let me assure you, I understand that.
I don't believe you do.
Oh, I do. The question, what I am trying to listen to, I know you may be shocked by this, but I'm listening to the sheriff, is that, and I listened to his people who talked to us, which was 3 or 4, and that apparently the summer is a difficult time, trying to hang on to what he's got, and that he was trying to search for a way to say, provide a little something to hang on for the summer. That's all. I listened to that. I'm just trying to sort of digest it and seeing, is it possible? Yeah, it is a little, I appreciate the numbers, because now it's closer. I mean, I feel closer. The other big estimate in there is overtime. Hire more people, reduce overtime, hire more people, reduce P&G contract. Sheriff has some optional funds that he could probably dig into that are clearly not committed, that could be done. There's probably made a way it could work, and I sort of think from the sheriff's, as long as we're not paying more money, I'm probably willing to take that chance, and if the sheriff's willing to take the chance to make it even if it gets too tight. It's a minor issue, seemed to be important to him, seemed to be important to their folks. That's where I am.
I'm not comfortable.
I'm not surprised, and that's okay. Everybody has their own comfort level.
They sure do. I'm getting ready to talk about how uncomfortable I really am. It was kind of tricky to do that tax decrease, knowing that I'm the person who always wants to reduce taxes. But I'm very disappointed in the special appropriations, and thank you, Commissioner Woodbury, for feeling the same way I do about special appropriations when some of this money could go to departments that we are responsible for. But I'm not at all comfortable with option 4, and I think that the tax decrease would be better spent to put in reserve in case we come across this recession that everybody's talking about. And I agree with Commissioner Bessie that what we set aside for the school system was in the 800,000 range. So that's what I'm uncomfortable with.
Well, perhaps we needed to have another little recess and we can have some discussion.
Thank you, Chairman. That would be proper. Thank you.
Good. You want to reconvene? How long do you want to reconvene?
An hour.
All right. Let's go for 11:15. 11:15. Good.
I've looked, I don't know what I did.
Do you want me to just print the whole package off for you again? Yeah. Print the whole package again that has all of the answers.
What's coming out?
Just
We're about 5 minutes late, but thank you, Kyle, for taking an option 5 and sort of recouching that, for us, and perhaps you could review that.
Okay. Sorry. So option 5 follows along, our other options. So if you just go to the second page of option 5, you'll see really where our starting point was again at 569, 499, 508. And so what option 5 does, it has both of the investigators, so those two are both in option 3, and so it's essentially follows along with option 3. The other change with option 5 is, let's see, going on down, it adds $50,000 for Crossnor. They had requested some funds, so it's $50,000 for Crossnor. And then, what else did we do? We reduced the iBank from 250 to 150. So in option 4, this was at 250, it's down to 150. I'm sorry?
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. And then also, the Partnership for Prosperity was in options.
You said.
I'm sorry. 2, 3, 4, and the Partnership for Prosperity is removed from this option, option 5. And then rather than reducing the tax rate, it places $883,867 in a budget reserve, in addition to the $1 million that would be in a budget reserve. But that budget, the $1 million would be, in a budget reserve for the school system. This $883,867 would be in a budget reserve for future use by the board, whether it could be as a budget reserve in case of potential recessionary impacts, what have you. And so, and then the tax rate would remain at 67.78 in this option. I think those were the changes in option 5. It was really adding Crossnor, lowering the iBank, deleting Partnership for Prosperity, and then adding an extra investigator in the sheriff's office, and then placing funds in a budget reserve rather than reducing the tax rate.
I'm just real confused about what I was told in the back room.
What are you confused about?
What?
Everything's exactly.
No, it is not.
It's exactly.
Our bank
we went
is
over.
not exact.
It's 100,000 less.
It was
250.
less than that. In the back room, what you all told me, you all told me
Just told you.
100,000.
It's on the sheet I showed you. It's
No,
100,000
it is not,
less.
Don.
It's 100,000
You all
less.
told me 100,000.
It was 100,000 less.
No.
That's exactly what it was.
I don't need a break.
Yeah,
I just want an answer of why it's different from what you all presented to me. And I said, yeah, I can go along with that. I just don't understand why you'll say one thing in the back room.
That's
and get
exactly
out
what it
here.
was.
Maybe it's
100,000
not,
reduction.
Don.
What was written was 100,000, but it was a reduction. It was a minus. It was a plus 116 at the top and a minus 100 at the
No,
bottom.
no.
Well, I believe I've got, if I go back and probably find my sheet, you want to see it?
Jay?
I was led to believe 100,000 is where we would be, and I reluctantly was there because I think it should be 50,000. And by the way, I just think this whole process is so political that we are not doing diligence to the taxpayers in a fair way. I think we need to look at something that gets the personalities out of this process so that every group that applies have the same chance to get dollars appropriated, instead of the process that we are doing is not at all fair. And I have actually kind of lost some sleep over it, but I hope next year, as a commission, we can ask staff to help us to create a process that gives every group a chance to get dollars instead of the ones we have personal affinities for. It is totally unfair. And then on top of that, I have to look the sheriff in the eye, I have to look the superintendent in the eye and say, we don't have enough money for you, but I have enough money to give to organizations that I think are great organizations, but they do not scale the needs of these citizens with what we have to all live by. So I think we just, again, really need to consider that in light of, we have a staff here at the county government that we need to continue to support. So I just, we need to maybe have another round of conversations. I know we are where we are, and I'm glad the sheriff is here because I think there were some questions about that $3 salary increase. And even if we can't give it to him, I would like to hear once again, the need and what the dollar amount is, because I've had two conflicting numbers.
Thank you.
And on the specific question of the amount for the iBank, I shared the understanding that it was coming from 250 back to 100. That's not personally a deal breaker for me, the difference between 100 and 150,000 for the iBank, but that was in fact my understanding as well. So
I just have one comment to Commissioner Woodbury.
Yep.
Over the years, this board has provided a number of supports for nonprofits or in this community. A number of them are included in this list now. Do they have various purposes? Yes. Some are more economic development related, and some are more services directly to individuals related. So this is not uncommon because you're just picking out the issue on the iBank, which has, I don't know if you listened to their story, but they had a fairly, compelling story. And yes, it is true that I am a recipient of one of their corneas. That is true. I'm not hiding that. Talked about it openly. In fact, I'm going to have another one in July. So that's just a factor. But their story is they've been in this community for 50 years. They have actually never raised any money. They have been in business. They have leased a space that had serious flood damage from an adjacent owner, destroyed one of their laboratories. They said, we're going to have a new place. They have found a place. They employed 94 people and will be adding 8 more in the future. They actually now manage the iBank in Texas, the iBank in South Carolina, and the iBank in North Carolina. And they're here and they're saying, we're trying to get one-time contributions to help offset the cost of building our new building. Nonprofit, we have supported before. It's not an economic development project per se because they're not tax, because they don't pay taxes. So
They get
are they a for real, good organization with those things? Regardless of my personal association with it, I think that was a very reasonable request for one-time funds to allow them to maintain their facility here and grow, which is going to happen. So to assume that's not benefiting any citizen in the county or any nonprofit, I think is a false assumption. Is it my opinion? Yes, but we all have an opinion about everything that we vote on in here. And I think essentially we've been trying to reach consensus, and that's just it. That's kind of where we are, where I am.
Chair Martin, thank you for sharing that. And I think maybe you assume that I have a problem with the iBank versus the process. My concern is the process, and I think that that organization could have, been granted the award based on exactly what you're saying in the application, and the process is based on, hey, submit your argument of why you should, we should fund it, and I think that's something I could vote for, but it's not a fair process. It's just based on some of our personal interactions with these nonprofit organizations, and just because it's done in the past, it doesn't mean that it doesn't need to improve now or in the future. That's my overall argument. The other argument was that I was told that it was 100,000, not 150, and so that's just a technicality. But please don't take this as something personal towards that organization, because I think it deserves the same consideration as all the other ones. Nor you. I appreciate you telling organizations like the iBank of North Carolina that this is an option for assistance, just like all the other ones. But lastly, I will say that until we cross our i's, dot our t's with what we need to do as a county to make sure that we support education, that we are safe, that we are well, and that our county government is taken care of. I just, want to make sure those things are taken care of first.
Okay. Well, I'm not really, I don't, unless there are other questions, about where we're at. That is where we're at. And so, we could certainly, we can work up some budget ordinance. I mean, the budget ordinance based on
Yes.
different
Yeah.
option of it.
So, I think the real question is which option. We could certainly prepare an ordinance level across all five if we can narrow it down to a single one or a couple that we prepare and bring back to you tomorrow. We'll embed PAYGO and the board director initiatives into that, and then make sure the ordinance is in a form that's ready to adopt. So really, do you see a single option being prepared for final consideration, or are there multiple options that you'd like to bring for us to prepare and be ready for you to adopt tomorrow, or do you just need more time? All those options are out there.
My personal recommendation would be to prepare an ordinance based on option 5, and if there are specific amendments that are offered, they can be considered. I think that option 5 is the closest to consensus that we have discussed yet.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I'd like to make a comment.
Please.
I was just looking at all of these things and trying to figure out what would be the best thing. The best thing and the right thing is not the same.
Mm-hmm.
And the right thing to everybody is not the same either, the definition of it. Some of the, and there's others that's raised questions about special appropriations. This is, I guess, question call. Some of the special appropriations that's on this 4 and 5 received ARPA money. And some of them substantial amount. And if they did that, it's hard for me to or at least for this year, to see why that they need more. And when you get down to things like that, it just I don't know the answer for it. I guess they wanted more and thought they needed more and they asked for more.
There are certainly some of these organizations that did receive funding for ARPA. I know what you would hear and what they would say is, ARPA funds were for ARPA specific projects, and this this funding that they've requested is really more, perhaps for projects that they have funded in the past through special appropriations, or just operating support for the year that's non-ARPA, I think is what we would hear from organizations.
Chair Martin, if I may, I would also ask us to be, ask us to be reminded that probably, if I was to take out my book right here, I wrote down all of the 40-something names that came to speak with us, and I would tell you over half of those, not including the ones from the school district, would say, thank you for but support schools too. I think there was just a consensus around trying to let us know as organizations, if we don't get as much this year, or maybe nothing at all this year, we understand, because there are some pertinent needs out in the community. And I would say, I think in my last comments, that I wanted to get some reconciliation around the two numbers that at least I had based on today's figures with the $3 salary, and I see the sheriff is here, but whenever we can get to that, I just wanted to remind that I had asked that in my previous comments.
Well, I think we could resolve that now. I mean, I think I spent way too much time talking about my side of it. However, I mean, I think something could be made to work. I was just speaking with the county manager before we started. I mean, something could be made to work in that regard. But I think that's a question of what this group wants to do. And I personally can go either way on that. And we need 4 people that would be agreeable to do one thing or the other. It maybe sounds like there might need to be a little more private discussion about some of these issues.
That does not work.
What?
That does not work. It's talked privately back there, and when you get out here, it changes. That doesn't work.
Apparently, Commissioner Wisenhunt, you had a misunderstanding.
I did not have a misunderstanding.
Of exactly what I showed you or what you
You've
thought I
already
said.
had another
We were standing
commissioner.
in the hall.
You've had another commissioner to tell.
Neither of them were in the room when we talked about it. Tanya actually brought back an item. We talked about it. And we kind of said
Yes.
those things, and maybe her understanding was different also.
Maybe.
Apologize for that.
Well, if you want to do something, reduce it. Reduce your number to what I was told it would be.
It's what you heard, what I think you heard.
I was told it was 100,000. You've got 150 on here.
Did we ever get to a round number in terms of the $3 increase, what that was going to look like?
As far as the cost,
Yes.
I thought we did.
It was 500 and plus thousand, 568, something like that.
Okay.
522.9.
So, and I think the other thing that we've got a little bit of information about is just real clarification about what programs are already in place. So, yeah, I mean,
I was okay with
yeah,
retention and sign-on bonus, so I just was asking.
yeah.
I'm sort of confused.
I was speaking with the sheriff during the break, and the annualized cost, if it were to enter as a continuing item, would be on a gross basis, it would be 1.5 million, and it's hard to determine what the actual cost would be when you take into account overtime and contract and all. It's a moving target, and the intangibles in the room, the unpredictable is still what's going to happen with the labor market and what's going to happen with competing jurisdictions and agencies. We're looking at substantial increases in the police budget in Winston-Salem. Guilford County apparently is paying more for their detention officers. We're in a very competitive environment for workers, and it's hard to predict exactly what effect it's going to have on the numbers. Everybody's giving their best effort to come up with the best estimate we can, and the truth is it's very difficult to get in the ballpark with predictions right now, and it's impossible to be precise because we don't know what's going to happen with competitors and with the overall economy.
Yeah, what we know is that PTRC did their pay study, and what we know from the results of that is that the detention officer classifications did not warrant an increase based on that survey data that was provided at that point. What we know moving forward, and I think the way we've decided to handle it is mid-year to do another survey, particularly around law enforcement. We can certainly include detention in that, and then if there's a comp and class adjustment that looks warranted at that point, then that there'll be a possibility to deal with it then. Because again, the salary survey data that we used just said we were in pretty good shape from that perspective. Again, it's a moving target to Commissioner Bessie's.
But no, I agree. I think that in addition to the retention bonus that's already scheduled for this fall, that a mid-year reanalysis of the salary scale for detention officers is entirely appropriate.
Including, to be done with law enforcement piece,
Yes.
because we do know that those are going to be moved.
And we know from the survey that we did of all the detention officers back in January that money is not this big issue here. And that's clear from talking to, that was thousands of comments. It's clear on that. So it's not all about money here. I did think that the sheriff's comments were about the getting through the summer and trying to deal with a temporary fix for a short time. I could support something like that. Could not support the continued amount. That's just totally arbitrary. I think the salary study verified that is not warranted at this time. Maybe it would be warranted with another look at mid-year or something, but there are a lot of issues involved in what's going on at the detention center.
Chair Martin, could you remind me what the figure was for the support for the summer?
No, that was a $3 an hour deal. That basically is the $522,000. The question was, did we anticipate salary slippage enough to do it? On a very high level, you can make some adjustments and probably make it work. Because you have levers to make adjustments. Lever in the P&G contract, you have a lever in overtime. There are issues that do impact those actual costs. But I think if you really did, I think a little further discussion with the county manager, if you did a more scenario analysis based on some assumption, a model, if you will, some modeling, you could probably come up with a comfort level issue and a way to do that would not be 9 pay periods, but it would be something for the summer. It would be temporary and could be ended. And could be covered and adjusted. But I agree with it. As close as it is on the big picture, it's close. And it may very well, and I don't think we should be subsidizing that from the county anymore. Obviously, the sheriff has discretionary funds. If he wants to step to the table, I think that's also something he can do. But if there's not any interest in doing that, this takes, if there are 4 people interested in doing it, we can do more work. If there's not, and I can, quite frankly, I was just trying to look at something to get through temporary through the summer, and that's my only support. It is not a strong support by me.
So if a detention officer leaves us during the summer, they walk away from $2,500 in October.
A detention officer who was here last October will be walking away from $2,500.
Because we're extending it.
It's anyone on the pay period. So if they're still here October 2023, regardless, they would receive $2,500.
Oh, regardless.
That is correct.
Even those that were hired new.
The new individuals would be receiving their sign-on bonus because they get 3 payments of that.
Got it.
We really need to advertise that. So, that's definitely what we need to make sure that detention officers know those payments are closed. And in addition to a premium payment that's going to be made.
Premium pay is next pay period. That's funded through the ARPA dollars.
Yeah. And a boosted performance-based pay system inside. I mean,
I think advertising, I'd say let's just leave it alone. I'm for leaving it alone then. So if I'm the swing vote on that, then let's just leave it alone. For me.
But definitely advertise what is coming, so that folks are aware when they're making whether to jump to a different spot. Decision.
Do you all post that on LinkedIn? I mean, I just see other counties on LinkedIn that post.
We are not, So the sheriff's got, he's got a communications piece. We don't do a lot of communications. It's kind of over in his world, but we certainly need to do that. And if we need to play a more proactive role, we will certainly communicate the actions of this board, both in the past and what happens in this budget, and we'll try to direct those. Now, we'll get Ed to try to direct those. We just want to make sure we do it in concert with the sheriff. So.
And the sheriff's office, I will say, have been doing a really good job on their social media recruitment things and lots of stuff, so that they're everywhere.
But LinkedIn, maybe not as much. Well, I appreciate you mentioning that one. That's a little different, more professional social media piece that really is getting to a little different.
So I do want to be more clear, because somehow I got lost in the maze of, I guess, the original ask of the $3 salary increase over 9 pay periods. Then we went to support for the summer, and now we're at, well, there is a premium pay coming up, I would assume, in next month, next week, and then there's a retention pay. And so how does that cover, at least, I guess we're saying those amounts would take care of the summer piece then, because these bonuses would ride us into the summer. And that is equivalent to the $3 increase, because the $3 increase wouldn't be on top of the premium pay and the retention pay, I guess. Kind of confusing right now. I guess I got too many scenarios.
So I'm not saying it like replaces it or not. I'm just trying to give information of things that are upcoming for employees. So this board approved several premium payments with ARPA dollars. And so the last one to employees will be next week. I believe it's in the amount of $700. I'll double check in a second, but I think it's $700 that's left. That's right. So that's one payment that's going to all eligible employees. That's full-time employees, and part-time get a portion of that. So most people will get that in the county. In addition, for detention staff specifically, they were granted recruitment and retention bonuses. So for new hires, they are allowed $5,000 if they stay, but it's paid in 3 installments. The first one is $1,200 after 6-month anniversary, $1,200 after 12-month anniversary, and $2,600 after 18 months. And that was anyone hired starting October 21st of 2022. So they fall in the sign-on bonus category. Total $5,000 paid over 3 installments. For employees that are here, so they received a retention bonus. Their first one was $2,500 on October 21st, 2022. And for anyone that is still here on October 20th, 2023, will receive another $2,500. So for a total of $5,000.
And this budget does extend the recruitment bonus another 6 months. And so folks, in addition to all of that, if you come into service over that 6-month period, you would be on a schedule that was the recruitment.
So we would be carrying really in a So through December 31st, if this board approves 2023, we would be continuing the sign-on bonuses, and those individuals would be paid out really over an 18-month period of time. So 6-month, 12-month, and then 18 months.
So, and I don't want to muddy things up, but I've gotten in so deep that we probably need to say we have done what we called a short staff differential in the Sheriff's Department. It's been a number of years. Talk a little bit about what the history of that was. Getting out of it proved difficult, and we had a strategy. Talk a little bit about that.
So that was, we did do a short staff differential under Sheriff Schatzman at the time, and that was when they had a severe detention officer shortage. I believe at the time it might have been 65 cents an hour. I can double check, but that sounds about right. The challenge we had at the time is when you give something to individuals, it is great on the front end, but then when you take it away, that then they feel like they're losing something. And so what we did at that time, because that was creating a lot of discourse with the detention officers at the point in time where it would be taken away, we did end up rolling that amount into their permanent salaries. It's coincided with one of our pay studies anyway, so while the 65 cents an hour was removed from like the separate, differential, we did end up rolling it into their permanent base salaries so that they didn't feel like anything was removed. Does that make sense?
Just by way of history, so probably should have called it a short staff differential this time, because y'all have done that, and it is very difficult to undo. And if you remember back in the Sheriff Schatzman days, most of the upheaval in the detention office at the time was a function of going to rotating shifts, actually.
So Dudley, I do have a question. So with a new sheriff coming in, you've gotten the sign-on bonus throughout this phase, and then are they still in the queue for the retention bonus? I think so.
So if individuals were still here, then they would receive the $2,500 on October 20th, 2023. Okay. But that would have been folks that were here from October last year. Anyone that was hired from October to present falls under the sign-on bonus pot.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does, yes. I didn't know if they were still in the queue for the retention or not. Okay.
So my last question, and Chair Martin, I will say, it looks like the sheriff is up and down, so I don't know if he was trying to say something, but nevertheless, I just saw the movement, and maybe we're saying something that's not accurate based on, this conversation. So I did want to recognize that. But so would there be any discretionary through the sheriff's department with the retention monies to say, for instance, we will give you more of that $5,000 earlier than the timeline to try to compensate for that summer period?
That would be at the discretion of the board. So the current resolution outlines the dates, but certainly the board could make a modification.
I know. I mean, sometimes when people have the money during that time, although it technically belongs to them, but when you put it on your timeline, it's not their timeline. So the quicker the money could get to the employees, we may be able to salvage something versus nothing. And I don't know if someone from the sheriff's department could speak to that, and if that would be a consideration, at least for the commission to change the timeline.
Well, I'll just make one comment, and then we heard from the sheriff yesterday. I'm probably not interested in more, but if he tells me he loves me again, it might be okay. But basically, the issue of the retention bonus was retention. It was for people to stay. And the conditions were set aside that we would do this over a year, and we want you to be here in October. We don't want to pay you the money in advance now and you walk out the door in July. I mean, I just think I think that was a good program. It was the sheriff's request that we do it. We did it. And I think that, I think probably for the retention bonus, there may be some evidence that it has been successful, maybe. Maybe the churn has been in new people. I don't know that for a fact. But anyway, if the sheriff would like to say a word or two, come ahead.
First of all, good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I was in New York the other night, and I saw the lady standing here crying and asking for money. And I know you keep saying about the leadership. I know you keep saying that. But if you look at what's happening, everybody that came up here was talking about money. So the issue can't be all based on the leadership over there. If you're going to use that as your litmus test, then you got to say there's a leadership problem at social services, EMS, the school system, the police department, the Navy, the Army, the hospital. I'm telling you what I see every day, and it's frustrating to me to sit here and listen and you not understand and feel the pain of the people that are working over there. You can keep those two positions that you're talking about. If you get, yeah, I said that. If you're willing to help me with the detention center, that's where the bleed is now. The bleed is there. You know, and the question about, am I telling the truth? That's a whole nother conversation based on what I heard today. But what I got to say about this right now is that I need y'all to understand what's happening now. I need you to understand, we're not talking about, and I had this conversation with Ms. Rob, I'm not concerned what's going to happen down the road. I'm talking about now. If I got sick right now, I need you to fix me for now. I can go through therapy and worry about walking next month or next week. I need y'all now. You can keep them two officers that you're talking about. If you're willing to give me what I need over there, I'm willing to trade because I know what is needed. That's where my passion is. Because I see what's happening over there. I'm over there every day. And people have left knowing they're going to get this $2,500. We speak about $2,500 like that's some large sum of money. It's not. It's not. All I'm asking for you, Dr. Martin, is hear what I'm saying, please. And I don't know how we got to a year down the road and muddying the waters with the numbers. I asked for 9 pay periods. I didn't ask for nothing unimaginable. I didn't ask for nothing crazy. And my passion is because I represent the men and women over there. I represent them. I need your help. I don't know no other way to say it. And I appreciate you. I love you all. I do. But it's frustrating to sit back there and know what's happening, Doc. It's frustrating me because I got to walk across the street and I look at them. And if you did it for Schatzman, do it for me. And the survey that y'all talking about is almost a year over when you talk about compensation and pay. This survey was done 9 months ago based on the year before that. That survey is basically outdated.
I don't think that's true. I think
Yeah, it was 9 months
didn't we
ago.
take a look from the Piedmont Triad Regional PTRC salary? We did a second.
No, the current salary survey was just done. Their data collection was earlier this year. And for detention officers, the minimum pay, and our minimum for detention officers is $44,511. Guilford's is $43,430. They do have some other kind of incentives that they do. So we do military and education and some other things percentage-wise above the minimum for those who qualify. Guilford does have a different scale that provides, in some cases, some additional compensation.
But we also have our sign-on bonus.
That is correct.
You ever have a sign-on bonus?
I don't know if they still do. I know at some point they did.
I spoke with the sheriff yesterday. They do.
Well, and by the way, you asked for the sign-on bonus
I did, and you
X
gave
amount
it
of
to
time,
me.
and we said, Yep.
And I
we'll-
appreciate that.
We will do that, and we also said we would do it and pay for it out of the, basically, salary lapses. And that has,
Doc, anything-
unfortunately, I guess you could argue, it's worked, in that the salary lapses were sufficient. And I think with all the things we're talking about, we had a previous discussion earlier today, that the salary, we may not be able to cover it with salary lapses to do the equivalent of your 9 pay periods. So I have a question for you. You have some discretionary dollars. You're apparently willing to put $233,000 that is in our alternate service request for you towards that. That might change the arithmetic on that.
If you give me permission to use discretionary funding to stop the bleeding, I'll do whatever I can.
You have some funds that I think he has some funds
Do I have?
grant funds, other funds, different things. You got lots of little
Yes, then
funds.
we can close the conversation. That's my passion, Doc. Everything you have done for me, I appreciate it. I appreciate everything you've done, Mr. Linwood, Mr. McDaniels, Mark. I love what you've done. What I'm talking about, I'm right here, right now in a situation. I'm not talking about what's going to happen a year from now. I'm talking about the here and the now, and I need you. And if you're saying I got discretionary funding to do this, and the numbers add up, because it's obvious we go back and forth with these numbers, they're not add. The math just ain't math. And if I can do it, then tell me that, Randy, and I get the permission from you all, I'm done with the conversation.
Well, the county manager gave me a little high. You don't have, this is what you have discretion on. You got a budget that you have submitted to us. And within that budget, anything you want to swap out of that budget to go towards this, I'd say that is absolutely within your discretion.
Well, that is not exactly true. The biggest number in this budget is compensation and salaries.
Well, yeah, but-
And so he does not have discretion over that, and really just from an order.
No, well, yeah, not that, but I'm thinking of, because as we have discussed other times about the social media budget and the TV show stuff and those kind of things and the drone contract and those are things that have been added that also can end.
Dudley, do you happen to know that number approximately?
Salaries?
No, the unrestricted funds that he's,
So
needs
really,
approval for.
his fines and forfeitures piece is really the biggest part of that. There's some, other grant money,
I know,
some SCAP
but in
funds.
that, could you kind of give me an estimate of, or Randy?
I think most of his fines and forfeitures number, because he has really funded a lot of the Arctic activities out of that, and there are a number of commitments that as he's brought things to you, he said, I'm going to pay for them out of fines and forfeitures. Those discretionary dollars are what he matches up on these mini COPS program, where a community comes to us and says, we want to buy another officer, we'll pay for half. The county will pay for half, the town pays for half for 2 years, and then
Yeah, I
the
just needed to
equipment
know
piece
an
comes.
approximate amount, that's all.
Kimberly or Randy, do y'all know that money? Some of it's spoken for. Now, I will say
That's
their
fine, I just needed
recoveries.
to know a number, that's all.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Thank
Randy
you.
maybe has it.
We would have to look and see if employees' salaries are an eligible expense for forfeiture funds. I don't believe they are, but we've already spoken. I think we're using quite a bit of funds for the SWAT.
Yeah, that's fine. I just need to know the number, please.
For how much is in what?
How much is in that's
in
line
our
item?
forfeiture funds, approximately $700,000
Okay.
right now.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Some of it.
Thank you. Mhm. Okay.
I appreciate you all allowing me to speak. Apologize for the passion, but I'm in a fight and I need you. That's all I can say. Love you. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman, if we could take about a 15-minute break, please.
Mr. Chairman, let me say something so y'all can be thinking. Since I brought up the ARPA, when we get back, I'd like you to see if there's any interest or consensus from the board that these organizations that got ARPA money, that the appropriation that they're asking for from the county be cut to half. There's some of them that ought to be cut out, but I know how that is, trying to take something totally out. So y'all be thinking about that, and whatever your answer is, that'll be it.
Commissioner Linville, I just wanted to address some of that, so I'll give you an example. So for the, hold on a minute, let me make sure that I'm picking one that's already, so we'll take the Children's Law Center. The Children's Law Center did get ARPA money, and they had a $100,000 request, and we gave them half. So, just wanted
Just
to know
think
that.
about it.
Yes, sir.
That's all I can say to you. If it hurts too bad, don't do it.
I get it. Thank you very much, sir.
I'll tell you what we could do. I assume there's lunch at noon. Maybe we could take a little break now, work in having lunch, and maybe get back together at, say, how about 1:15? How's that? Good? Good? Okay.